All right, we are talking about some different processes and regulation of the digestive system in this video. So, the digestive system is going to do these 6 fundamental activities. So, that means that these are essential to the process of digestion, which is ingestion, so either eating or drinking, propulsion, mechanical digestion, chemical digestion, absorption, and then defecation, because we do need to get rid of any leftover substances and products from our food. So, main functions of the mouth, which is that first main organ of our digestive system, is to ingest food. So, that is the site where we first take in food or beverages. It is also going to chew and mix food, which starts the mechanical breakdown process of digestion. So, breaking up those food into smaller bits, mixing it all up together. And there is going to be a little bit of carbohydrate breakdown starting chemically. We do make an enzyme called amylase that is breaking down carbohydrates that's produced in our saliva, but most of that happens further in. But we do start that chemical breakdown. Then it's going to move food into the pharynx, which is that first part of the passageway, where it's going to progress into the esophagus after that. But without the mouth, and the tongue specifically is going to be helping to push that food back into the pharynx. And then we do have one additional enzyme produced in our saliva. There is a lipase. This is an enzyme that's going to break down lipids. So we do start a little bit of that lipid breakdown in our mouth, but more of that happens later on in the intestines. Other things that the mouth is going to help do is going to help moisten and dissolve that food, which allows us to taste it. That's an important part of eating, believe it or not. It's also going to help clean and take care of the teeth and the overall oral cavity. And we do have some substances in our mouth that are antimicrobial to help kill off bacteria and viruses, among other things that we might ingest. Next up is the pharynx and esophagus. Not a whole lot going on here. They are going to really just kind of propel food onto the next organ or region of the digestive system. So the pharynx is going to move it from the oral cavity to the esophagus, helping to lubricate that as well as the passageways. And then the esophagus is going to propel that food down to the stomach, making sure that it's moving along the way it needs to. The stomach is our next organ. It is going to mix that food with gastric juices. So this is going to be acids and enzymes and some other stuff. And this is going to form something called chyme. And that is what we are making in the stomach. So we're kind of mixing and churning that up. We are going to start the chemical breakdown of proteins here in the stomach, and then we are going to slowly release food into the small intestine, that first region, the duodenum, as chyme. There are some fat-soluble substances that will get absorbed through the stomach, like alcohol and aspirin, but not a lot gets absorbed in the stomach. It's going to absorb some water, and it also has some antimicrobial functions. That really, really acidic pH of the stomach, because we have a lot of hydrochloric acid, is going to kill off a high number of pathogens that theoretically would get into the deeper parts of our digestive system. The stomach is also going to help secrete a specific substance called intrinsic factor, which is required for vitamin B12 to get absorbed later on in the small intestine. And B12 is super important for the nervous system and blood development. So we definitely want that to get absorbed properly in the small intestine. It can cause a type of anemia called pernicious anemia if we are lacking in B12. Next up is the small intestine. So here we are going to take that chyme and mix it with some additional digestive juices. Um, it's going to very slowly propel food forward through the digestive system, but we need it to be slow so that we can actually finish that chemical breakdown and actual absorption of all of the nutrients. So it's going to absorb a lot of different things here in the small intestine: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, so all of our macromolecules, nucleic acids, so that we can keep making the components of DNA, along with a lot of vitamins, minerals, and a significant amount of water gets absorbed in the small intestines as well. It is going to keep with some physical digestion via something called segmentation. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that is just moving that food through in segments. And so we do have a little bit of physical digestion going on here, but more chemical digestion and absorption than anything. Small intestine is the best place that is within our digestive system for the enzyme activity of these various enzymes needed to break down all of our different macromolecules. The colon, or large intestine, is our next section, and so this is going to keep breaking down certain food residues. It's going to absorb any remaining water that we need it to, as well as electrolytes, so sodium and potassium and stuff like that, as well as certain vitamins that are produced by the bacteria that live in the large intestine primarily. And it's also going to help move the waste products, the fecal matter, towards the rectum, and then ultimately eliminate those at the end of the digestive process, which can be anywhere from about 24 to 72 hours later, depending on a lot of different factors. So, it's going to help with mucus production also, because we need some mucus for making sure that the tissue stays in good condition and is not kind of being destroyed as the food is passing through. And then we've got those accessory organs. The liver is producing bile salts, which break down lipids, because lipids are not going to be water soluble, so we can't dissolve those in water like we can other substances. The gallbladder is going to store that bile salt, as well as get it very, very concentrated, and then release it into the small intestine through that hepatopancreatic sphincter. And people do have their gallbladder removed and can still live normal, healthy lives. They do need to slightly modify their diet, though, because we're not getting that storage and concentration of bile salts that we would be otherwise. So the liver will keep producing that bile, and then we'll still get that bile production. It's just not going to be as concentrated or in as high quantities. And so people who have gallbladder surgery tend to really need to watch their lipid intake. And then the pancreas is going to produce a ton of digestive enzymes and bicarbonate. And so the bicarbonate is going to help neutralize the acid coming out of the stomach. So this is same thing as baking soda, essentially, which is sodium bicarbonate. And so if you've ever mixed baking soda with vinegar, and then you end up with water. And so that's kind of what we're doing with this bicarbonate and mixing it with the hydrochloric acid from the stomach, but in very, very small quantities, because obviously we wouldn't want that baking soda vinegar reaction happening full scale in the intestines. And so the sphincter, that pyloric sphincter at the end of the stomach, is going to slowly release the chyme into the small intestine in very, very small bunches so that it can be neutralized safely as it passes into the small intestine. So there are a couple different ways of moving food through the digestive system, and two of those are swallowing and peristalsis. So swallowing is pretty straightforward. This is also sometimes called ingestion, so mixing that up with saliva in the mouth, and then the tongue will form that into a little bit of a ball and push it down the pharynx and in towards the esophagus. Peristalsis, on the other hand, is segmentation that's kind of occurring in an alternating wave. So peristalsis, we've got this little food ball. This is called a bolus. And so the muscle above it is going to contract and kind of keep contracting in this wave-like motion, slowly pushing that bolus of food further on into the later parts of the digestive system. So the esophagus is going to do this, as well as the intestines, to kind of keep that moving through. But definitely the esophagus, kind of getting that pushed slowly down that muscular tube, because the esophagus is basically just a muscular tube. So mechanical digestion is actually physically mixing up the food. So this is mastication and segmentation. So mastication is chewing. So this is the fancy scientific word for chewing. So breaking down those food particles with our teeth and stuff like that as they mix with saliva, is that chewing, that mastication. And then segmentation occurs mostly in the small intestine. This is localized contractions of the circular muscle around that section of the digestive system. And those are going to basically isolate small sections of the intestine and kind of move the contents there back and forth, so that it's mixing continuously, it's still breaking that up, and that is going to mix it more with the digestive juices, the enzymes and stuff, so that it can be absorbed a lot more efficiently. And so here's kind of a graphical representation of that. So ingestion of food, that propulsion, we've got the swallowing. Peristalsis happens in the esophagus, stomach, and then all of the intestines. Chemical digestion is done via enzymes and the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Mechanical digestion occurs in the mouth, stomach, and small intestine. So in the mouth, it's going to be chewing or mastication. In the stomach, it's churning, which is why we have 3 muscular layers there, so that we can kind of mix that up a lot. And then that segmentation in the small intestine. And absorption is happening, again, primarily in the small intestine, with a little bit occurring in the large intestine. So there's a lot of different ways that the nervous system is going to regulate digestion. So we have neural and hormonal controls that are at play here, moving through food through the digestive system. And so the neural controls, this is through the nervous system, and then hormonal controls through the endocrine system. So those nerves that are integrated in the walls of the alimentary canal, all of those different serosa and subserosa or submucosal layers and stuff like that, have those nerves. And so we have a lot of different types of receptors there. These are going to include mechanoreceptors for detecting movement, chemoreceptors for detecting chemicals, and osmoreceptors, which are going to detect water balance and stuff like that. So those are all really, really important, obviously, for sensing when food appears, what's that food made out of? Is it mostly carbohydrates? Is it more protein? Stuff like that. How much water is present in it? All those different things are really important for the body to know, how much mixing and churning, how much of that mechanical digestion needs to take place, what types of enzymes need to be produced, and in what quantities do those enzymes need to be produced. And so that is all going to sense all of these different components of our food, as well as knowing when has that been broken down correctly, and knowing where to move that and where to signal further down in the digestive system. So these different nerves, in addition to controlling movement and sensing of what the food is made out of, is also going to integrate with our central nervous system, so the brain and spinal cord, and help us kind of prepare to actually eat. So this is why a lot of times if we're seeing or smelling food or something like that, we can actually kind of pre-start that digestive process. And so sometimes you'll start salivating and stuff, or your stomach will start rumbling, because you are sensing that food, and it's all tied in between the brain and the digestive system. And so the digestive system's kind of trying to get ready in advance for the food that you might be getting ready to eat. On the other hand, we also have those hormonal controls, and so there's a lot of hormones involved in the digestive process. The main one in the stomach is something called gastrin. This is just secreted when food appears. It is going to cause the secretion of gastric acid, which is that hydrochloric acid produced by the stomach. And then there are other GI hormones produced later on in the small intestine, like secretin in the duodenum region. It's going to trigger the pancreas to produce that bicarbonate. There is a cholecystikin, or CCK, which is going to get the pancreas to make all of its digestive enzymes and get the liver to create and release bile, as well as a gastric inhibitory peptide, which is going to slow down the production of that gastric acid in the stomach, as well as slowing how quickly the stomach is emptying into the small intestine, and kind of slowing down that motility a little bit. And so the GI hormones secreted in the digestive system are done by specialized epithelial cells called enteroendocrine cells. They're located in the mucosal epithelium of mostly the stomach and small intestine. But because they are still hormones, they are still part of the endocrine system. They don't just get sent directly into the lumen of those organs. They have to be secreted into the bloodstream and carried through the blood vessels to their target organs. And that wraps up this video. We will talk a little bit more in detail about the mouth, pharynx, and esophagus in our next video.